Hi, I'm Colin Leath and I'm the Subject Advisor for Economics, Business and Enterprise. I'm going to talk to you today about the transition from the QCF BTEC Nationals in Business to the RQF BTEC Nationals in Business. I think there are four key differences. The first is that, unlike the QCF, the RQF has different sized units. There are 60, 90 and 120 GLH units. The optional units are all 60 GLH and the mandatory are a mixture of 90 and 120. Another difference is that there is compensation, because not all the units have to be passed. The internally assessed units are set out slightly differently, with learning aims rather than learning outcomes. And of course there are externally assessed units which weren't in the QCF BTEC Nationals, and these have a near pass grade, which is a new type of grade. This slide shows the structure of the extended diploma. Please note that there are now more mandatory and fewer optional units than there were in the QCF BTEC Nationals. There is also another difference. You'll see that the mandatory units have to be both completed and achieved, whereas the optional units just have to be completed. This allows for compensation. I'd like you also to take a look at the units at the end, units 28 and 35. All these have been written with professional bodies like the Chartered Institute of Marketing, for example, and these units will help learners progress into professional qualifications should they wish. The first thing you'll notice about the internally assessed units is that they are set out in learning aims rather than learning outcomes. These learning aims group together pass, merit and distinction criteria, often sharing a distinction criterion between two learning aims. This means that they have to be assessed together. It is no longer acceptable to use a task per criterion approach. There is also another section after the assessment criteria grid called Essential Information. In this section you'll find statements relating to the distinction, the merit and the pass grades, and the type of evidence which standards verifiers will be looking for. There are three types of assessment on the new RQF BTEC Nationals. The first, internal assessment, is very similar to the type of assessment you're used to on the QCF BTEC Nationals. You'll be using assignment briefs, and the work the students produce will be internally verified and made available for standards verification as before. The grading is slightly more complicated than with the QCF BTEC Nationals, partly because the units have different sizes. Each unit carries grade points, and those grade points are added together to make a total grade at the end. However, the grade points reflect the different weightings of the units. A second difference is the way in which the grade points are set out for the internal and the externally assessed units. For internal units, each grade gets a specific number of points. The points earned in the external units are slightly different from the internal units. Rather than having 1 point score per grade, there is a range of points available. For example, a student achieving a pass on Unit 3 may gain a high pass, a middling pass or a low pass, and the grade points would reflect that performance. The external units also have a near pass grade. You will see this as N in the qualification. This N grade is very important because it allows students to claim a qualification so long as they can achieve compensatory grade points from other units. Without this N grade, a student would be at risk of failing the qualification as a whole if they only achieved a U grade in an externally assessed unit. So the N grade allows the students to pick up grade points and to pick up points in other units to make sure they achieve the grade threshold. If you're interested in finding out more about the transition from the QCF to the RQF BTEC Nationals, I'll be covering these points in more depth in an upcoming webinar.